Sound check. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I got to get rid of an echo. Good morning. We got sound now. Do we got sound? Do I still have sound? Now do I have sound? All right. There we go. There we go. I got this thing now. I can beat it. Before I couldn't beat it. Before it was like always beating me up. But now I got it. I got it. I'm going to get rid of the echo. Please let me know if the echo is gone. Now, how about, are we good? I think we're good, folks. So, welcome to the Lost Ways. We're going to be stepping back in time to what our ancestors did to survive. Okay, thank you. Let me take it down a little bit. How about now, Mama Freddie? Are we good now? Are we good? Tell me when I'm good. There we go. How about now, Mama Freddie? Is it better? All right. Thank you very much. This thing can't beat me up anymore. I've learned a lot over the last year because it is one of those soundboards that really like get you. You got to like figure it out. And if you don't, well, you're stuck in the limbo land. But we're going to be going into the Lost Ways every Friday, and I hope the echoes much much better. I don't know why I still feel it. I still hear an echo. Okay. Okay, now I don't, but do you all still hear me? That's good. All right. But anyway, so I'm really excited about this series. Not only are we going to be talking about things, but I'm also going to be cooking some of the old Lost Way recipes. We're going to be cooking chipped beef, basic biscuits, and all different types of things that they used back in the 1800s to actually survive and thrive. And so I'm good night, Skipping 10. Thank you for coming in. Get a good night's rest. Thank you. I hope that everybody really enjoys this. So let's get into it. I'll be right back.
It's a good morning. It's a good morning. Sun is shining, birds are singing. You are smiling back at me. Got the boat up. It's a good morning. It's a good morning. Sun is shining, birds are singing. You are smiling back at me. Got the boat hooked on the back of the truck. We got nowhere else to be. It's a good morning. It's a good morning. Windows rolled down, favorite songs up, barefoot tapping on the dash. We can take the back roads, no one else around. Hit my arm when I go too fast. It's a good morning. It's a good morning. After that boating, you can crack open our first cold ones of the day. Before the clock hits noon, me and you will be floating our worries away. 'Cause it's a good morning. It's a good morning. It's a good morning. It's a good morning.
All right, I'm here, and I'm glad everybody's here. Good morning, Caitlin. Good morning, Mama Freddie. Good morning, Skippington. Copycat, copycat. Good morning, everybody. So, this is going to be a very interesting series. We're going to take some field trips. I've been talking about this series for, what, 3 months? So, I'm super excited to bring this series to you. The Lost Ways, there's book one and there's book two. Book one we went through several months ago, almost a year ago. Book two is quite different. And I think one of the big things when it comes to prepping is that we're all concerned about water. We're always concerned about water. Travel back in your mind, back to when the sailors were on ships, back in the 1700s. What did they do and how did they store water for their long, long journeys across the oceans and the seas of the United States and around the world? Was there a secret to the way they kept it? Many times we hear stories about sailors getting sick from the water, but those were little small stories. Overall, sailors traveling around the world on oceans didn't get sick because what they did is they had a special way to store water. And really, when it comes down to how we store water today using plastic barrels that can leach into your water, it's probably not a good thing, right? In 1630, sailors would actually store the water in wooden casks. These soon realized that the casks leak and rot, thus leading to the accumulation of algae and bacteria, right? As a countermeasure, they started painting and charring the cask, CASKS, on the inside before using them. So kind of like that old effect of the wine barrel. We've seen them like the Jack Daniels barrels that they actually make whiskey in, and you can still pick up cask all around the country and overseas. So I think that that's one thing that we could look at. The big thing, this involved burning sulfur inside the barrels and generating sulfur dioxide. In spite of the heavy smell, because it stunk to high heaven, it's kind of like lighting a lighter and you smell that. I mean, a match, and you smell that, and you actually, if you light a match with your hand, you can smell the sulfur. Can you imagine a whole barrel smelling like sulfur? So that's something that they did. They chlorinated the water is probably the simplest method to get rid of the unpleasant, rotten egg smell that sulfur did. But however, they had to make sure they used regular bleach, just like us. 16 drops, 1/4 teaspoon of 6% bleach. I had someone talk to me about bleach and they were very concerned because the new bleach is not 6%. So if you're going to use bleach to decontaminate your water, you really do not want to use the gel bleach in any way, shape, or form, and you want to make sure that it's only 6%. If you don't have a pen this morning and something to write with, this may be the live stream that you want one. The other thing is that's per 2 gallons of water, so it's 1/4 teaspoon or 6% bleach per 2 gallons of water. For chlorine solution, you can make it at home with granular calcium hydrochloride. Now, I bought a bag of this, so I am going to be showing a demo of how to do it, right? You use one heaping teaspoon, approximately 1/4 ounce to 2 gallons of water. And this is going to really decontaminate your water. Of course, the old fashioned way, and the way that we often talk about on prepping channels, is to use boiling water. They say 3 to 4 minutes, but honestly, I've done it. I really think that you should be over the 6 minute mark. How many of you have done any type of water purification? Either a Lexapure, a Berkey, a Mini Sawyer, a Life Straw, or you boiled your water out because of an emergency. Hit a one if you have done that before because you had to. I think it's really, really important to know not to use any type of scented chlorine bleach and to make sure that you are paying really, really close attention to what kind of bleach you're buying. Because if it come down to an emergency, not only do you have bleach for your water, but you also have bleach for decontamination in case of a nuclear situation. So you could actually use it in that way as well. Um, Do not ever use scented bleaches, even if you like it. Or and make sure that do not use the color safe bleaches or bleaches with added cleaners as prescribed by FEMA, as this will definitely contaminate the water. Do not use pool chlorine as it's really, really strong. It's really probably stronger than laundry or household bleach, but in a pinch, in a terrible SHTF, you can figure it out. And maybe I'll go down the rabbit hole and try to find out exactly how to use pool chlorine because you can use it, but it would be in a dire, dire situation, right? Um, Treating the water with iodine is another great solution to have clean drinking water. You simply add 12 drops of iodine, 2% tincture, to 1 gallon of water. Okay? That's another really, really good thing. The big thing that I want to get into today that I think is really important is that in a SHTF, our food source, they're going to run out. We're not going to have them available to. Yeah, I like activated charcoal too, and I do have some. But I want to say this, our food source is going to run out, right? And we're going to be like, how do we survive through this crap? And that's a huge, huge thing. So, identifying and foraging, we've talked about foraging. Foraging takes a lot of practice. But what they used to do back in the old, old days, the lost ways, is they would go out and they would pick a plant. And that plant would be able to tell them exactly if it was good or bad because there was some tests you could do. Now, this, my friends, is probably one of the best things that you can learn. If you do not have something to write with, this is the one that you need to really learn because it was eye opening to me. Is that you go and you pick a plant. The first test is that you smell the plant. You smell it. And you can't go by smell alone, okay? You cannot go by smell alone. Um, hold on one second. Hold on one second, y'all. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. I got something coming in. Hold on 1 minute. Hold tight. 1 minute. I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay, sorry about that. I'm sorry. I have I have some really wonderful things happening and I have to pay attention. So when we go to wildcrafting and foraging, I want to talk about that. Wildcrafting your table, bringing simply collecting wild edibles from our environment. And as we all know, this is something that everyone knew about at one point in history. It was it was like the biggest thing. People would go out and they would walk in forests behind me and they would find edible plants. Foraging is kind of to me a very lost way because I've never done it. I've never done it. I never went out and picked mushrooms because I've always been afraid of mushrooms because of what they could possibly do to your head, right? But food grows everywhere, and humans have settled for not going out there and doing that. But if you ever find yourself in a survival situation for an extended period of time, you're going to be downright grateful for a salad of fresh greens or something to supplement your rations. In fact, when we learn to identify the edibles in our region, it's going to gain so many options to add variety to your food storage. And our food is going to run out. Right now, the United States and around the world, we're set for a global starvation. Global. We hear about it every day. Plants blowing up, fires, trains derailing, food processing plants. We hear about all the chicken being cold. And I think that this is probably one of the most important things that we can learn is how to feed ourselves, right? You can't hear it very well. I wonder why. I'm sorry, copycat. Let me see. Let me see what I can do here. I haven't been on this for a while, so I need to. I'm sorry. I hope that we can. Is that better? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Is that better, copycat? There we go. There we go. I'm changing it up. Is that a lot better? I think it is. I apologize. I apologize. Talk to me, people. Talk to me. Tell me. But I think that when we go into the foraging and we really learn how and what we need to get. In fact, when you learn to identify the wild edibles in your region, you'll gain so many options. And there's a list of herbs, and I'm going to post it on the community page. Um, Copycat, you're not old. Well, maybe we're all old. One of them is prickly lettuce, right? It's an annual or a biennial herb. You usually harvest it in the springtime. And like any other lettuce, right? It's very low for you as well. Shoot. Okay. Hold on, folks. I'm so sorry. Okay, is that a lot better? Here we go. Here we go. Let's get it up here. Is that better? Why do I always have problems with the volume? Is that a lot better, folks? Talk to me, talk to me. I'm so sorry. Is that better? Hold on, I'm gonna make one more adjustment. Is that better, folks? Man, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating that I can't get the volume right. Echo, now just a little. Okay, thank you. Take that one down and take this one up. Is it better? Yeah. Woo, boom, boom. Yeah. Hello. Here. Hello. Hello. Hello, YouTube world. Sorry I was so quiet. So I think that we really need to learn tons better but at echo. Shoot. Gosh darn somebody. Now how about now? How about now? A lot better? I'd rather deal with echo in here. I'll figure it out again. I just haven't used this for a while, and it can create a really nonstop crappy echo. Let's see if I can get rid of the echo. Better? Is it better? Okay. Gosh darn. Uh, okay, wonderful. All right, it sounds good now. Well, we got 17 minutes into the program, and we're hanging in there. But wild lettuce is probably one of the best natural painkillers. Also, see, wild lettuce has been used by many people in place of addictive prescription pain medicine. It's also called opium lettuce. The reason it's referred to as opium is due to the pain relieving and sedative effects that it has been known to produce through a white substance found in the stem and the leaves, right? So I think that's another one that we really need to learn about. I'm going to be posting recipes on the community page. Also, if you're a member, you can reach out to me at offthewallprepper at gmail, and I will actually send you a link so that you can download the Lost Ways 2 and print out the pages that you want. So for a membership, I think they're down to 99 cents or $1.99. That's one of the perks of being a member is that you get the Lost Ways 2. And I think it's a really good book. You really need another lettuce is the arrowhead. It's a perennial herb. You can harvest it all year long, and arrowheads are very common. They grow in wet soil along the creek and rivers and also in other wetlands. And they're really, really easy to identify by an arrow shaped leaf, right? Also, I didn't realize this. Tell me a vegetable that you think that grows wild that often we buy in the grocery store. Anybody know? Anybody know? This is a good one. And I'll give you a hint. I like it with hollandaise sauce. Did that give it away? It probably did. Who knows? Come on. What vegetable do you eat with hollandaise sauce? Asparagus. Asparagus. And I did not know that asparagus grew in the wild, right? As- Mushrooms and hollandaise sauce would probably be good, but asparagus grows wild and it's widespread throughout the whole United States. And you're going to find it along the roadsides, in ditches, and anywhere that the soil has ever been disturbed. It prefers a sandy, well draining soil. So even like copycat and people that are in Arizona, like Georgie, you can still find asparagus. And I thought that was wonderful because one, asparagus has a lot of nutritional benefits for us as well. See, young, tender asparagus is probably just delicious, just grabbing it and eating it raw. I want to say this when I was on one of the international channels, Skipping Tins, she has moringa out in her yard growing. She also has papayas, lemons, lemongrass. I don't even know what it's like a fortress of vegetables and fruits, fresh. And I was loving watching her cook. If you've never checked out her channel, Skipping Tin's channel, she does cooking and different shows and a lot of singing. But her cooking shows are phenomenal for us here in the United States that really don't cook that way. I never knew about moringa, and I never knew about cooking with lemongrass. How many of you ever cooked with lemongrass? I'm just asking. I don't know anything about lemongrass. I like the lemony taste of food, though. I do. Um, the other thing, and we touched base on this in the Lost Ways one, is cattails. Cattails grow all over the United States as well, and they're plentiful, they're easy to find, and they're easy to identify. Um, One thing that I want to talk about with cattails is that there's so many uses. You can actually make flour. You can make corn, like a corn on the cob with cattails. Can y'all believe that? I was dumbfounded reading the Lost Ways one about all the ways that you can use cattails. I'm trying to find the lost episodes of the Lost Ways because I put a lot of work into that show and there was a lot of them. I think we did 10 or 12 every Saturday morning. Um, there was a certain subject that I wanted to bring up that was a little different than just the vegetables and the foraging because the lost ways, there's so many things that we can learn from our ancestors. The way they made and hand forged tools, the way that they fixed their own wheels, the way that they mended their own clothing and made their own clothing. And that's the really cool thing about the lost ways is it doesn't just touch on one subject, but we're going to be in a journey back in history. And I think that our ancestors had it right. They really, really lived off the land. I get burdock and wild mustard from behind my house. And what state are you in, Sugar Sugar? I think that each one of us has to take the time to really learn our area. Like there might be certain things that grow in Caitlin's area that don't grow here in the Ozarks, right? And I think as those things occur and we find more knowledge about what grows and how to identify the ones that are easily accessible in our state or our region. I think it's more probably by region than it is by state because we each live in like this different types of environments, right? Um, Y'all know I like those damn pine needles. I do. I do. I like I like to talk about pine needles, but there's something really cool about pine resin. And you live in Texas. You can make glue out of pine resin. And making glue out of pine resin is one of the cheapest and easiest way to find something to bind something together when you're out in the wild. It's also easy to carry, it's durable, and you can crush charcoal and mix it with the resin from the pine. And after you melt it together, you just filter the resin out of it. So this is why the Lost Ways is going to be a lot of fun. You're going to see me doing a lot of demos, and you're also going to see me in the kitchen. And I think that it would be better if I cooked it over a campfire or out on my little stove to really get the effect of what it'd be like if we didn't have the luxury of a grocery store, right? Yeah, the Amish are awesome. Sugar, we have an Amish community here in the Ozarks that's probably about 25 miles from me. And I went there when I was doing my route for the corporate job, and I really enjoyed like seeing the people and watching what they do. And I think that they're great builders. The Amish are absolutely fabulous builders, fabulous carpenters, and some of them use modern technology and some of them don't. In Seymour, Missouri, the ones that live on the north side of the highway are old Amish, and the ones that live on the south side of the highway are new Amish. So the big difference in that community in the Amish is that the ones that are in the old Reich, they cannot use any modern technology. The ones in the south of the highway, they can use some modern technology, but they prefer not to. Um, they have a big apple festival there, and I think it's coming up in August or September, but I don't know if I'll be here or if I'll be in Asia at the time. So, um, but even when I go to the Philippines, and I'm not sure if my stop is going to be in Hong Kong, Seoul, or Manila yet. I'll know on the 18th of May. But I'm going to be doing some prepping videos and some walks through the Philippines, going to vegetable stands, going to local places to eat, and having an absolute ball where I'm going fishing. I'm sending a box of stuff over there ahead of time for my trip that Skippington's going to hold for me until I get there, like my fishing pole, right? My fishing pole's going to the Philippines. Um, and I'm really excited. It's about from her home to the beach is about I'd say a 7 minute walk, maybe 10. So I'm really excited to go over there, check out the ocean, and check out the sights and enjoy some really much needed fun times. I want to say that when back to the charcoal and mixing it with the resin, you want to be very careful when you're crushing it, right? You want me to visit Maine? I have a friend, a dear friend, in Delaware, and I would love to go up there. Um, One thing, Caitlin, is I want to visit. There's a huge antique show that I've been wanting to go to up on the East Coast for years, Brimfield, and it's in Brimfield, Mass. And I really would like to do that um, in my bucket list before I'm too old and gray to do that, right? But I just learned you can use chalk and garden for fertilizer supplement in a pinch. Thank you for sharing that. That's a very important thing as well. But when you're crushing charcoal with the pine resin, you want to move with slow movements and crush it carefully so the charcoal dust doesn't fly out. That's one huge thing. And then after you crush it, you want to dump it over the resin. And it's two parts resin and one part charcoal. And it really depends on how you like it, but you have to experiment with it and find the best for you. I do have charcoal, and of course, I can get pine needles, a lot of pine needles and resin. So we might do that one too. I want to do some different demos. Also, we're going to be taking a trip into one of the caves here in Missouri, and I want to show it because There's a lot of good water resources, and when we find these resources, we definitely need to mark them in our maps or in our mind where they're at in case of a real SHTF, right? Um, oh, really? Caitlin, I want to go to Brimfield, Mass so bad. I've been wanting to go for the last 10, 12 years, and it just didn't happen. So, the last thing that I want to talk about today is how the sheriffs from the frontiers defended their villages and towns. And I have a little excerpt, I think is what you call it, that I'm going to read. If we desire to avoid insult, we must be able to repel it. If we desire to secure peace, one of the most powerful instruments of our rising prosperity, it must be known that we are all at times ready for war. Written by George Washington. Let's step back in time. Western movies give us a vivid picture of the law enforcement in the old West. When a gang of outlaws started to terrorize a town, the frightened people, they would beg their sheriff to do something. But usually, he was either corrupt, a coward, or just not up for the job. Everything seems lost until an enigmatic stranger appears, confronts the troublemakers, and saves the day. It's a striking image, and we always remember this from old Western movies. But honestly, it's wrong in almost every single detail. The people who settled the West were not shrinking violets. The fact that they were out there in the first place should tell us that they were real true pioneers. There were people who left their homes and traveled sometimes from the cities of the East Coast and often all the way from Europe to make a new life in uncharted wilderness here in the United States. They were pioneers and adventurers, bold, determined people. They may have lived in towns, but in some cases, they had built those towns themselves. Few Western settlements at the time had seen two generations raised there, and many were only a few years old. Even recent arrivals had struck out on a long, tough, and often dangerous journey to reach their new home. And not many of them were easily scared because as long as when they traveled the trails, they often ran into Native Americans, wild animals, breakdowns of their stagecoaches and wagons, death, and disease. They were the lawmen. Movies and novels often mix up the roles of the marshal and the sheriff, but they were very different. See, the history of the Old West mostly played out in territories that had not yet achieved statehood. They meant no state government to take care of them. There was no law enforcement. There was none at all. And the federal government's response was to send U.S. Marshals into the new territories. The United States Marshal Service is the country's oldest law enforcement agency and was set up in 1789 as the enforcement arm of the federal courts. Marshals were ideal for the job because they had extensive powers. They could hire local deputies or recruit a posse. And who was one of the ones that we all remember and all should know? That's right, Virgil Earp. He was a U.S. Marshal, and he hired Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday as assistants. But while marshals had a lot of power, there weren't many of them, certainly not enough to cover the huge and growing expansions of the West. As towns became established, they started to take responsibility for their own law enforcement in the shape of local sheriffs. The office of sheriff is an ancient one, dating way back to Saxon England. But in the West, it took on a distinctive form. Instead of an official appointed by the king, these new sheriffs were elected by the townspeople and given responsibility for law and order. Because, see, they were elected, sheriffs tended to be trusted. They were exceptions to the rule, however. Elections could be rigged, oh, rigged elections, or enough voters could be bribed to elect an unpopular candidate. But in general, the job was given to someone the people thought could do the job. The position came with a lot of power and even more responsibility. The sheriff could appoint deputies to help him with his duties, which there was many. A lot of times when a gang would come into the cities or the communities, the sheriff would pick out people quick as possible to make sure he had enough deputies to stop the intrusion. And folks, I think in the early days, before the Western territories achieved statehood, sheriffs literally had the power of life and death. Sometimes this meant locking a drunk up in the town jail for a few days. Sometimes it meant a hanging. But crime in the West was quite different than crime in the United States in 2024. Right, folks? We all see that the crime is off the chart and where it's headed. I think that one thing that I want to I want to touch about, and I really like this. In fact, a typical Western town in the 1860s had a lot less crime and disorder than most towns that we live in today. That's mostly down to the people who lived there and the lives they led. The lands of the West attracted a wide range of personalities, from dreamers and visionaries to building a paradise. They had ideas and thoughts for their families, but the untamed land was a ruthless judge. Folks, to survive more than a few weeks out there, never mind to successfully establish a home or business, you had to learn to work together. Neighbors helped each other by trading supplies or lending their muscles to a building project. Merchants gave credit on your face alone, and those who abused the trust soon found themselves unwelcome in the town. After the Civil War, the ranks of the pioneers swelled with veterans who brought their own camaraderie with them. All of this meant a level of trust soon developed in a western town. People knew their neighbors, they talked to their neighbors, they helped their neighbors. And I think that's what we're lacking here in the United States. We forgot what it's like to be neighborly. They worked beside them, they socialized with them, they drank, threw back a shot of whiskey. They knew they could rely on each other for help. In this atmosphere, petty crime was frowned upon and violence was surprisingly rare. When violence did threaten, it usually came from someone from the outside. There were gangs of outsiders that were often made of men who talked and failed to fit in with the frontier society, and they were banned. So they got together and banded together to form these gangs. As big ranchers moved in and came into conflict with small farmers, they sometimes hired gangs of gunslingers to enforce their will. Later, the early railway barons would resort to the same tactic, and you may remember this if you've ever watched the story of Jesse James or any of these other movies. See, the railway barons, they would resort to terror and the same tactics. And when the federal government began its war against the Plains Indians, the previous good relations between the settlers and the tribes broke down, and warriors began attacking farms and even small towns. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, they faced those old time lawmen, and they were a lot like the ones you're likely to see or be dealing with in an SHTF scenario. See, folks, they're probably going to fall on you a lot quicker. And after all, the West, society was still being built home by home, farm by farm. The majority of the people were part of that effort. They put in a hard day's work, blood, sweat, and tears to make things better. I think that if we imagine like what it will be like when a developed society like the United States, like ours, full of people that think meat grows in shrink wrap packages, collapses. Imagine, folks, suddenly all those people, they have to fend for themselves. And unlike the old pioneers, they don't have any idea how to do that. That's why we prep. We prep because we know it's coming. Will it come in our lifetime or another? I can't answer that question, and I wish I could. But I want to say, folks, as every situation unfolds in front of us, we have to realize that existing law enforcement, they probably won't be able to help you much. And, well, what elements of it haven't collapsed right now? We'll be completely overwhelmed because chaos will definitely spread far and fast. If you want to protect yourself, your family, your property in this type of situation or scenario, you're going to have to do it yourself. And see, many people in the U.S. now realize this and they aim to be prepared. But a lot of them are going the wrong way about it. This is where the lessons of those old sheriffs come in. To apply the same techniques as sheriffs in the West when the United States was untamed, our own situation resembles theirs, but it's a lot different now in 2024. We're going to have the equipment, guns, we're going to have ammo, and we're going to have sheriffs and deputies. And remember, when that first single shot is fired, and if you're in harm's way, you definitely don't want to be a lone wolf. See, cops will tell you that it often makes intruders turn tail and run without a single shot being fired. They also have a huge sound on a pump shotgun chambering around, which instantly is recognizable and highly, highly intimidating. A good old shotgun at 10 gauge or 12 or 20, it'll definitely do the trick in an SHTF. If it's SHTF's time, a lot of the intruders you'll be facing are going to be starving. They're going to be starving refugee from the city, and you don't want them stealing your supplies. But you also don't want to shoot them either if you can avoid it. It's really amazing how quickly we have become used to today's hyper connected world. You know, most of us are never out of touch. When we are, you know, but think about this. Only 25 years ago, cell phones were a rarity and mobile internet completely unheard of. See, we found a payphone. We hoped that they were at home, and we would call until we got a hold of them. Now, in the Old West, even that option didn't exist. There were no telephones, and the only quick way of communicating over long distance was the telegraph system. The telegraph system was set up in 1844, and it started blinking in Washington, D.C., then Baltimore by 1856, and there are around 40 U.S. telegraph companies, all based in the eastern states, but one of them, which had recently named itself Western Union, had begun buying up many of the others. And Western Union, which still exists today, as we all know, opened the first transcontinental line in 1861 between New York and California and through the rest of the century. Now, see, not every town had a telegraph either, folks. That station, it was special. It delivered that fast message to people. And even with all these huge improvements, if society collapses, you'll suddenly find your communication options at a very least as narrow as those of the 19th century pioneer. See, cell phone, landline exchanges, and the internet will go down very quickly. The only modern communication that will work are self-contained radios with their own power. And if you don't have them in your SHTF kit, well, you'll be back used riding to carry your messages like the old Pony Express. And I hope that each and every one of you has some type of system in line because I don't know about you, but the Pony Express don't sound too fun. I really appreciate every single one of you being here for the first episode, which is number 2. It's not. Yeah, I made a little error, but yeah, it says episode 2 on it. Every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Central, we're going to start next week with some demos, and I'm going to be out on the fire table cooking something delicious. I'm not sure if I'm making chipped beef or old-fashioned 1800 biscuits, but I'm really excited about the Lost Ways and bringing it back to the channel. I hope that you'll share out the Lost Ways, that you'll hit a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But what I want to say in closing is no matter what we do, we can learn a lot from looking at the past. We see that the United States, the history is getting wiped out. You know, over the last 5 years, we've seen statues taken down. We've seen strange things happen. And I think that instead of being a paranoid prepper, we need to one, prep our spirit, and two, learn the ways of our ancestors, my grandparents, and yours. I hope that each one of you will come back every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time for the Lost Ways. Right now we have Forest Watch set up for Tuesdays and Thursdays every morning, and we have the Lost Ways every Friday. And then, of course, at night, we're doing a little puff puff, and we're doing a little pine needle fun and a lot of music. I really hope that you enjoy the demos, and I can't wait to take every single one of you on a tour of a very cool cave that's been in the state of Missouri since the Civil War. It has a lot of history and stuff, and I'm really excited. I'm going to take you into the museum, and then I'm taking you into the cave where many, many Native Americans hid, and also many Americans found refuge during times of trouble in the early 1800s. God bless y'all from here in the Ozarks. This is OTWP, and I'm back, and I'm happy to be back. This channel's a little different now. I have pretty much quit reporting the news. You know why? Because we got good news. The good Lord's coming for all of us. He's watching over us, and most of all, stay centered and focused in your faith, your spirituality, and learning the skills. This is OTWP. Big, huge, pow, prepper hugs to each and every one of you. God bless y'all. Keep your head on a swivel, and most of all, be thankful for another day. God bless. Till I see you again, my friends. Everybody do the dang thing.
It's a good morning. It's a good morning. Sun is shining, birds are singing. You are smiling back at me. Got the boat hooked on the back of the truck. We got nowhere else to be. It's a good morning. It's a good morning. Windows rolled down, favorite songs up, barefoot tapping on the dash. We can take the back roads, no one else around. Hit my arm when I go too fast. It's a good morning. It's a good morning. After that boating, you can crack open our first cold ones of the day. Before the clock hits noon, me and you will be floating our worries away. 'Cause it's a good